Welcome to the Battle Ready Podcast. My name is Aaron McManus, and I am here with my dad, Erwin Raphael McManus.
I'm so excited to be here. I just learned that we've done 30 episodes already this year.
30 episodes this year. And people are complaining that we've missed a week.
Wow. I didn't even know we did 30. It's time to take a summer break.
Relax. Relax. You have a new book coming out.
I do. And I want to announce to our Battle Ready audience that the name of my new book is called The Genius of Jesus.
The Genius of Jesus.
The Man Who Changed Everything. I'm so excited.
It's so exciting.
And this is an incredible convergence of two passions in my life. For probably the last 40 years, I've studied the whole dynamic of genius from every aspect of that: creativity, imagination, innovation, and even looking at the dynamics of narcissism and sociopathic behavior and madness. And genius has always been incredibly intriguing to me. And, how does it form? How does it just sort of show up in different moments in human history? People like Mozart and Da Vinci and Einstein and Hawking and Picasso, and they've always been fascinating to me. And so this book is an unwrapping of genius, but it's also been, to me, fascinating that on all the lists of geniuses I've ever seen, Jesus has never been on a single list. And that began, for me, a journey to ask the question, if I did not believe Jesus was God, would I still identify Jesus as a genius? And why would Muhammad be on some list, and Buddha be on some lists, and Gandhi be on some lists, and Mandela be on some list, but Jesus of Nazareth has never made it on a list? Even I think Paul has made it on lists of geniuses, but not Jesus. And so this book is a convergence of a lifetime of study of genius, a lifetime of pursuit of Jesus. And then not only that, but asking the question, can genius be transferable? Is it possible, if we unwrap the genius of Jesus, that we might be able to discover, awaken, and unlock the genius within us all?
You heard it here first. So some actions you can do, some practical steps to unlocking the genius within yourself. You can go to Amazon right now.
Yes, you can. You can pre-order the book.
Go to Amazon right now and pre-order 5 books. Pre-order 5 books, pre-order 10 books. Here's the thing. If you can somehow get your whole church or your whole business or your whole staff, we will figure some way out to connect with you and do something with you. Whether it's send a personal message. I'm committing stuff for you, but I don't know. You tell us how many books you're going to buy, and we're going to figure out a way. Even if it's just like a quick hello or a FaceTime, we're going to find it. You might just get me, but we're going to find some way to connect with you guys.
Hey, and here's, to me, what's so exciting is, when I wrote An Unstoppable Force, and I was advocating some ideas that were seen to be outrageous, that humans are actually created to create the future, that this is the uniqueness of the human species. When I wrote The Artisan Soul, and I talked about how every human being is an artist, every human being is intrinsically creative, both those books were considered heretical. And now those concepts are actually normative. And this book actually advocates for an anthropology that there's genius inside of every human being. And there's an argument for it, and I think the argument is compelling. And I think it'll change the way we not only think of genius, but we think of ourselves, but also I think this is a fresh, new, provocative, life-changing perspective on Jesus. And so I'm so committed to getting this book across the world because I want people to think of Jesus in a way they've never thought about him before.
I love this book idea so much. And the cover is on Amazon. So
it is.
Go and pre-order it right now. Go and pre-order this right now. Send it to everyone you know, whether they know Jesus or they don't. It's on Convergent, which is Penguin Random House.
Yes.
So if you're just trying to convince your friend who would never read this book, be like, the same publisher that published him published Michelle Obama, Jordan Peterson, some legends. You are now in the GOAT category.
All right,
there you go. So here you go. Go and buy the book, pre-order it. Comes out September 14th. And secondly, go and subscribe to the new podcast we are working on at this moment.
It's called
The
Genius of.
The Genius of. We're going to link it in this bio. Go and subscribe. I'm going to get him to do an intro to the podcast right now. But do you want to announce who you're going to have as your first guest?
Well, what's exciting is I'm going to bring.
So that was a no.
Yes, I am.
Okay, you are?
Yes, but I have to lead up to it.
But you're not going to tell the big, you're not going to tell the big one, are you?
Well, I can tell a few, but we're going to do 2 streams here, and one of them is I'm going to start a podcast called The Genius of, and I'm going to be interviewing people around the world that I've gotten to know who express a very unique genius, and frankly, I recently did a podcast with Ed Milet, and he has millions of listeners, and it was such a powerful conversation with him that I asked Ed if he would be one of my geniuses that I could interview.
Okay.
And so Ed Milet has said yes, he would come, and I'm going to interview him on The Genius of Ed Milet.
So I was new to Ed Milet. Like you had introduced me to him.
Yeah.
And the day you were going to drive out to go do the podcast with him, I went on a run and I listened to like one of his episodes with, who was it? I want to say it was the founder of Netflix.
I can't remember.
But it was amazing. He's amazing. He looked like he is the long lost member of the Avengers. It looked like he ate the Hulk.
Yeah.
But he is really brilliant.
Yeah. And on top of that,
and very kind.
A year and a half ago, I did this incredible podcast with someone I did not know, but who we've become friends. His name is Lewis Howes.
Yes.
And Lewis interviews some of the most brilliant people in the world.
Cool.
And
he has a podcast called The School of Greatness.
He has The School of Greatness. And so I said, Lewis, I want to interview you for The Genius of, and I want to dig into your genius so that people can not only see your genius, but maybe begin to see their own. And so Lewis Howes said yes.
It's incredible.
And then, of course, we have my great friend, Angela Davis, who is the co-founder of Army. And she said big yes that she would come. And so we're going to unwrap the genius of Angela Davis. And there are so many others, but I'm keeping some of them secret.
We have a cool family.
Yeah.
The Davises that have a really cool family.
Yeah, they really do.
She is a business owner, a phenomenal, like a Nike athlete,
Olympian,
like an almost Olympian runner.
Yeah.
She owns Army, which is like an Equinox Soul Cycle boot camp training facility in WeHo, which is phenomenal, and in New York City.
Yeah.
And then with her partner, and then she also, her brother is Jerry Lorenzo, her sister's Angela. No, she's Angela. Her sister's Natalie Manuel Davis.
Her husband's Jerome Davis. They're just all really.
Natalie's husband's Brian. Jerry's wife is
Des.
They just have an insane family. They all do really cool things.
Every one of them is amazing.
Every one of them
has got their own genius.
Yeah, Jerry does Fear of God. That's just kind of, but so you have an incredible list that you're like really holding back on the other 15 people we have locked in. So go and subscribe to The Genius of right now. That brings us into our first topic, in that you are a pastor, but you are also a businessman, a fashion designer, a filmmaker, a published author. You have 10 plus books. Unstoppable Force was out 25 years ago?
21 years ago.
21 years ago.
Yeah.
If you want to rock your brain, go read Unstoppable Force. If you're looking for intimacy, go and read Soul Cravings. If you're looking for that moment in your life that you have been trying to seize, read Chasing Daylight.
Wow,
but now we're talking about you. You're breaking the stigma, the paradigm that you can only be one thing, a pastor. You are now all of these different things. How do you do it?
First of all, I'd say, I think that I can say this accurately. There's never been a book like The Genius of Jesus.
Right.
I'm sure there will be great books to follow on this topic, but this book is a breakthrough concept about Jesus. And it connects even to the question you asked me, how do I end up doing all these different things and not just be a pastor? Is that one of the things that's happened in my life, in my relationship with Jesus, is that he has erased the boundaries that other people tried to establish in my life. He has given me the freedom to dream and to imagine and to create, regardless what other people think. And And so I've never felt obligated by my relationship with Jesus to not be a filmmaker, to not be a fashion designer, to not do all these things and be a pastor. Only people put those limitations on you. Jesus doesn't put those limitations on you. He actually expands the boundaries of your influence and of your creativity.
That's a clip right there. Clip it, snip, clip, put it, let people share it. You were a pastor. You're also a fashion designer. You're also that's like the newest thing. I'm going newest thing to the oldest things. But you're an author, business consultant. You do, what else do you do?
For years, I've been a filmmaker.
Filmmaker, yes. Commercials, documentaries.
In the business world, I worked as a futurist for the last 30 years.
What does that mean? You say that, what does that mean?
Well,
Are you a fortune teller?
I wish, but I'm not. No.
Like rubs an iPad.
No, it really is. A lot of people think a futurist is someone who tells you what the future is going to look like or predicts the future. It's not. A futurist actually is able to, one, have a good sense of cultural trends, movements, what's happening in the world around you, what different factors will affect your company, your organization. Economics are involved in that, but also really what are the organizational changes, cultural changes you need to make to create the future your company wants. And so it's, for me, being a futurist is much more important in terms of helping an organization create the world they're imagining, and regardless of what's happening around them.
You have a really interesting approach to how you look at organizations as well, right? Because you're not really someone who goes and does a deep dive into the history, or do you? Because I've always, whenever I've traveled with you, you're always asking lots of questions, contextual questions, environmental questions. What is the cultural core values of an organization? But a lot of times you're able to come into a room and really figure it out just based on, it sounds so hippie, but I don't mean it hippie, but based on like energy and interaction. And
I know, it's so true. And I always have to be careful how I say this, but I can usually walk into a company within minutes, maybe seconds, feel the room, know where the positive energy is coming from, where the negative energy is coming from. I can tell where the problem's coming from. I can tell. And like, let me set the stage. So when I was like in kindergarten to like second grade, we had first moved to LA. But this was before my mom caught wind of what you were doing. You weren't working for church. You were a business consultant. Yeah.
And you were, at the time, at least the times I remember, you were consulting for Disney and corporate, right?
Doing some things.
Yeah. But I remember growing up like in a boardroom. So you would always volunteer to be the parent who'd take me to the field trip. But then about an hour into the field trip, you're like, all right, buddy, I'm over this. I gotta go to a meeting. I remember because you took me to the LA Zoo, which is like in Burbank somewhere. Where is it, Kev?
It's in LA.
Griffith Park.
Okay.
So we go there, you'd be there for like 2 hours tops, and be like, all right, buddy, you're coming with me. Tell your friends to go with the other group. And then you would take me to Disney, which is like around the corner, corporate, and you would like do these boardroom meetings. And I remember like some lovely intern would hang out with me, and I'd sit in the corner of the boardroom. I'd be like, I don't want to play with you. You're useless to me. I would sit in the boardroom and listen.
You did. You always wanted to eavesdrop.
Always wanted to listen into the boardroom conversations. And then you would kind of do cultural breakdowns of like helping them with marketing or XYZ.
Sure.
But I always remember this. It was really, really prevalent that you were so effective from the moment you walked into the building to the moment you hit the boardroom. You already knew enough information from the moment you walked into the time you sat down. You'd ask 15 different questions.
Yeah.
And then by the time you sat down, you had a pretty decent grasp of where they were at with whatever certain issue they were bringing to you. How do you ask the right questions?
Well, I mean, that is the key, is asking the right questions. And that takes some skill to pay attention, to listen carefully. And at first you're listening to nuances. You're not just listening to what people say, you're listening to what they don't say.
Right.
And I mean, I can think about a major car corporation that we went and consulted with, and they were hiring us to do assessments of older employees. But the CEO and the CFO said, but we don't want to go through any of the process ourselves. We just want you to do it with our employees and give us feedback and then help us figure out how to fix our organization. And again, this is an international car company. And I told him, I said, the problem is that we could assess all your employees, but I looked at the CEO and the CFO and I said, but the problem is with you two. And I said, you two can't stand each other. you're the CEO, but you're pretty sure the CFO is leveraging to steal your position. And you as a CFO, you're actually planning to take his position. And they looked at me, both of them almost at the same time, and said, how did you know? and I probably shouldn't have said it so directly. We did not get hired
back.
Yeah.
As the other problem.
And,
you're like a one and done guy.
But I what I realized was that they would hire us and we would fail because they wouldn't allow us to address the real issue.
Interesting.
And so I did not want our company to have that mark on it saying we could not accomplish what they wanted and use us as a scapegoat for what was really going on. And and so sometimes you just have to pay attention to the relational dynamics, to what isn't being said, to what is being said, to how it's being said. And I mean, one of the funniest things that ever happened is I was in this business meeting in Canada.
No, but hold on, let's address that thing. You didn't answer my question.
Okay.
How do you ask the right questions?
Well, I think you have to begin by just listening, asking people to tell you their story, ask you to have them explain to you what they see as the issue, what they see as the problem, what they see as going on. And as you listen to their story, you'll begin to see massive gaps in the story. Right. Where you'll notice that there's certain things that aren't talked about. And it's just like the whole dynamic of organizational ethos. What the rules are never the problems. Everybody knows what's written. It's the stuff that isn't written that really creates the problem. And so when they say, well, I'm having a problem with this person because of these things, or we're having an organizational problem because of these things, you can always know the things they've identified are not the core problem. You have to see the thing behind what they identify, what's causing that, and
so you're shoveling like beneath the surface.
Yeah, you're asking questions that push behind their already established conclusions. They've already prepared in their minds
what's wrong,
what they're going to tell you.
Right.
But those things are usually there to hide what's really wrong and what they don't want to tell you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your first question when you go into a conversation like this, when you're trying to solve a problem?
How can we help?
Okay. Something's really broken. We don't know what's going on. We think it's this. We think it's this. These are all the problems. The problem's them, not us. How do you address it?
Well, I think that you begin by saying, well, what do you hope to accomplish? And because if you're unhappy, that means that you have a certain idea of what your company should be doing, how you should actualize it, and you're not effectively hitting those goals. So I would say, what do you think is the problem? And I always ask them that. It's like help me, like I'm new here. So let me see your company through your eyes.
Do you think that's a dangerous question though? Because immediately like they're either right or wrong. So now the person who's supposed to hire you, you've already either made them a liar or an idiot.
No, I think it's just about helping a person
because if they were
have
right,
new eyes.
Because if they were right, they would have been able to solve the problem without you.
Right.
So
here's the thing: when you have a problem and you can't see your way out of it because you're in the middle of the problem.
Okay.
I can look at your problem because I'm not emotionally affected by it.
Okay.
And I can see more objectively.
Okay.
But when I have a problem, I'm in the middle of that problem and I may not be able to see very objectively. And so it always helps to have outside eyes looking in at your problem.
Right.
And so it's not that I'm smarter than the people I'm going to help. It's not that I'm better at it.
Your fresh set of eyes.
And I'm not emotionally attached to the choices that have been made. I'm not emotionally attached to the failure. I'm not emotionally attached to what the solution might be.
Oh, we were talking about this yesterday. I really hate emotional attachment to decisions.
But there are emotions attached to every decision.
No, there isn't.
Yes, there is.
No. Okay, let me rephrase. Yes, there is. You are right. Not everything has to be driven and forwarded, put in motion by emotion. Does that make sense? So I can choose a yes or no on a certain project, knowing all of the factors. I was saying this to you. I get mad when someone pretends it's business when it's actually personal. If it's personal and it's business, just say it. This is a personal thing that I need to solve because I can't lead at this level because unless we address this personal thing that's happening.
See, and I would say the business is always personal and that you don't really separate those.
And what I'm saying is that don't mask personal.
Yeah, that's different.
Does that make sense? Don't
yes.
come saying, this is the business issue. Come and say, I have a personal problem with this business issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or even in leadership,
or I'm personally affected by this decision.
right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I don't like when people try to approach it corporately or professionally when it's really just a personal thing that they want to achieve professionally.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I don't want to do this because it
I
affects
do
my life.
think that's why intention is really important. You have to know what you're about and why you're doing what you're doing. And that informs everything. But a lot of times when a company begins to lose its way, it's because they lost their why. They forgot why they're doing what they're doing. And they became more attached to a what or a how than a why. And that's what happens in churches. I mean, the why is supposed to be to bring life to all of humanity through the sacrifice of Jesus.
Yeah.
But then the church forgets the why, so it gets committed to the how and the what. And so we have to do it like this. These are the things that are important to us. And you're going, wait a minute, you've lost your why because the what and the how became more important. Or sometimes even the where. Like a lot of churches die because they're not willing to relocate and because they lost their why. Their where is more important.
Yeah.
And but also it's about being proactive in the creation of the future rather than simply responsive to the dynamics and the circumstance.
So how do I be proactive about the creation of the future?
You need to make decisions every day that move the future you want forward.
What if people are okay with just where they're at, but then they're mad that they're dying, but then they just like who they are?
Yeah. I mean, I've struggled with this because I think that I have a hard time imagining a person being okay with mediocrity or a person be okay with apathy or a person being okay with average. But I know that is functionally true. But I think deep down inside, that's just because we gave up or because we don't believe we can change the circumstance. I think deep down inside, people want to live their optimal life. They want to live at their highest level of potential. But if I just give you the example, because I wanted to tell you the story. I was in Canada years ago working with this company, and I started explaining to them why I felt their company should make these decisions, move this direction. And one of the men said, well, it's too risky. We need a plan B. And I was trying to walk him through that if they have a plan B because they're inclined towards safety, security, and low risk, they'll just move to default plan B no matter what.
Yeah.
And then the guy pulled out something that happened earlier to me. Right before the meeting was getting going, a waiter came into the private room we were meeting in, and he asked me if I wanted a drink. And I said, I'd love to have a Diet Coke. And he said, well, we only have Pepsi.
Ugh.
And he goes, would that be okay? And I said,
not the same.
And I said, no, it's okay. Just give me a glass of ice.
A glass of ice is by itself?
Yeah. And then an hour later in the meeting, the guy in charge goes, you can't control the future, and you always have to have a plan B. And he goes, for example, when you came in, you wanted a Diet Coke, but all they had here was Diet Pepsi, and you had no control over that. And I said, that's a great point. Then I reached into my backpack and I pulled out my Diet Coke and I popped it open and I said, that's why you need to be proactive enough to bring your game and your A game, and so that you don't have to go to your B game.
Wow. So you brought your stash just in case.
See, and I think a lot of people just move through life incidentally hoping that the universe—
Your plan B was your plan A.
Yeah, believe me, if you're not moving with intention toward your plan A, you are getting plan B, C, D, E, and F.
Okay. So how do we, one thing that we find a lot of times in church, which I think also the more and more we work in business, we see this as well, just as much. They just found something scalable and then they got comfortable.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in church, things scale. Whether they work or not, it's really easy to get comfortable in what you're doing.
Yeah.
The same times, the same structures, people sit in the same seats, they invite the same people or they don't invite the same people, and they have their same kind of migration patterns. Especially when you get a kid and then you have a child and you have a family, and then it becomes this very cyclical thing. We go to church for this and then we take these days off and this is XYZ.
Yeah.
How do you, because comfort is something that people I feel achieve, right? Because you know this, you're an immigrant from El Salvador, though you came from a very educated and decently successful family.
Yes.
But then started over in Miami. Really started over.
Whenever you migrate, you're starting over.
You're starting over. So it wasn't like you came and you had all this wealth. It was like you guys really genuinely started over.
I mean, people don't realize there are a lot of doctors from Syria who are here working blue collar or manual labor jobs because their medical degrees didn't transfer from the Middle East to the United States.
Yeah.
When you migrate, you're starting all over.
You start over.
No matter how educated or
Especially
successful you were before.
in a country of this size.
Yeah.
So you're getting comfortable. So when you come to a new country, like to achieve a certain level of comfort, like having a house, having cars, being able to put your kids into school or keep being in the right neighborhood or just providing for your family, there's a certain comfort is something that is achievable or something you were trying to achieve. But then when you achieve it, it destroys you. So how do you achieve a level of success but not also get comfortable?
Well, and on top of that, how dangerous is it when people think the church is supposed to be comfortable?
Right.
Right. And I think that's one of the challenges is that if you're living your life for your own personal success, whether it's, a house in a safe neighborhood or a car or whatever it may be, then you're more likely to get comfortable. Mm. But if you're living your life to do the most good you can in the world, then you're never going to get comfortable.
Right.
Because there's always more good that can be done in the world. And so there's some sense in my mind that the best way to always stay hungry and stay ambitious is to live your life for others. Mm. And then to enjoy the benefit and success of that hard work as well. See, I don't want to try, I don't know why, but we're almost like creating this, our culture is creating this demonization of people being successful. Like everyone who's successful, everyone who's affluent, everyone who's wealthy, everyone who started a company and it worked, they have to be bad people. And
I don't talk to those people.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
who make that a thing. I don't. If you want to be normal, that's fine. Just go find other normal people.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go for broke. I just started broke, so let's go for broke. Let's try to achieve something.
The way to not get comfortable is to always care about something more than just yourself, outside of yourself, and that's I think is what drives our life too. Is how much good can we do, and even as a dad, I care about you and Mariah and Jake and Juno now.
We have a kid in our family.
I have a granddaughter,
a new baby.
Yeah, and so we're
baby
so excited.
Juno.
But see, it's interesting to me. It matters to me what I do in my life, even now, how it affects Juno.
Right.
And so I think the more people you care about, the less likely you are to get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then if you only care about yourself, I think it's easier to get more comfortable. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to go back to the other dynamic here.
But I would challenge that a little bit. People would say like I care about my family, so I'm comfortable because I've achieved taking care of my family and I don't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
You've never really gotten comfortable.
Yeah.
And you're 62, almost 63. Because I'm turning 33, you're turning 63.
That's right.
Do you ever get exhausted by the lack of comfort?
I don't know if I get exhausted by lack of comfort. I get afraid that I might choose to just live comfortably. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to look back on my life and go, oh, 40 was my peak, or 50 was my peak, or 60 was my peak. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to die at my peak. And so whether I live toward my 70s, or if I live until my 80s, or if I live until my 90s, I kind of hope I'm still peaking. So that when I die, people will go, wow, he had so much still left to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't really believe in retirement.
No, you don't. You really don't.
No.
So back to you were a pastor, built a church, and it was great because I was at a party last weekend, and it was a birthday party, and a guy I had met a couple of times at like dinners. He kind of comes up to me, and he's like, "So I heard your dad owns Mosaic," and he goes, "I didn't mean own. I meant like." Because I looked at him, I was like, "Oh, he doesn't own it." He's like, "I didn't mean own. I meant like he started it." And I was like, "Yeah, he did start it like 25 years ago. Been in Hollywood for the last, I guess, 10 or 11 years now."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to come." And I was like, awesome. "You want to come?" I had no idea. He was the one I thought for sure had no interest. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I grew up Catholic, but like I really love to come to church. I want to come." And I was like, the moment we're open, I'm hitting you and you can come.
That's awesome.
We'll go together. But one thing for him and my friends in that kind of world, they don't see any issue in you being a business person as well.
No, in fact, it actually gives me way more credibility.
Yeah, they think you're more interesting because you're like, if you were just a pastor, I think they would be nervous.
Yeah.
But because you do so much more, because he was like, I would love to come to church. I was like, if you come to church, cool. I love it. I want you to come. Come over to our house. Let's barbecue. Let's hang out. Let's get the boys over. Let's watch a game. And he was like, oh, okay. he was interested. He was intrigued. Yeah. But I think being in both worlds, and it's funny because they have to say both worlds. It should just be one world, and you can be able to do different things.
Yeah, for me, it is one world. And I always find it to be odd when people go, well, you're a pastor and you shouldn't, have a fashion line, or you're a pastor, you shouldn't be making films, or you're a pastor, you shouldn't be, writing books like this, or you're a pastor and you shouldn't be interested in clothes, or, you shouldn't wear those sneakers, and I'm going, wow, since when is my life defined and dictated by someone else's opinion of me? And what I find it interesting is that like all those people have opinions on pastors. None of them cared about me when I was making $6,000 a year, and Kim and I were sleeping on the floor because we couldn't afford a bed. And when for a decade I never made more than $12,000, $15,000 a year. No one showed up during those years. No one was putting me on their social media. Nobody was talking about me. And what you have to realize is that the people who aren't interested in you when, quote, you're not successful, you shouldn't be that interested in their opinions when you are successful.
It's so interesting, right? It goes back to that quote of, I don't know if it's really Christian Bale, but I think you see it on Instagram all the time of if you don't have my number.
No, if you have a problem with me, call me.
If you have a problem with me, call me. If you don't have my number,
you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me.
Exactly. Those are words to live by.
Yeah.
Because I'm just we had a little bit of a scuffle a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry. It's my fault. But someone had posted, and then always things. There's always little things because we're in a city. I was talking with a friend who came in from the middle of the country, and he's like, we get some hate because we grew really fast and we moved to a really wealthy neighborhood and we bought buildings and we're really growing rapidly because our online growth is really big. Not us. I'm talking about his situation. Yeah. We have grown. We grow.
Yeah.
But they went viral from being a little church kind of in the hood to being this big viral church online and then growing in person. And we were kind of talking about the modernization of technology and church and everything. And he was like, but we don't ever have actors and actresses and famous hate us. If someone hates us, it's someone's mom down the street that is uncomfortable with our situation, or that we're young guys kind of taking over the area. And he's so we try to be so supportive of other churches and other organizations, verbally and loud and outwardly. And I was oh, it's cool. But for us, we genuinely kind of are in the heart. And I went to this dinner and my friend was like, what happened? Why does that person hate you? And I was we're polarizing at times because we're in a city where there's so many people who struggle to become actors, struggle to become business people, are struggling to live the dream. And it's hard for them to see people, I think, of faith be successful.
Yeah.
Because it's and I love it because I'm okay, when you're called to something that is really not about yourself, and then God makes you successful in that, or you become successful in that way through kind of God's effect in your life. It's really hard for other people to watch. It kind of is really revealing of their own situation and their own humanity, how capable they are to express joy for other people.
Yeah. And I think that's a great indicator. If someone else's success makes you unhappy, you have a problem.
Yeah. Yes. But people throw stuff at us.
Yeah.
You're a cult, or you're wolves in sheep clothing.
Yeah.
And I'm I'll take the wolves in sheep clothing. But I'm not in sheep clothing. I'm wolves in wolves clothing. I'm the wolf to kill the other wolves. You come at my family, I'm gonna come at you. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But I do think it is a huge stigma thing because my friends, a huge paradigm shift that's happening, because I do think that the generations after me no one will ever question them starting businesses because you've broken down a lot of those situations.
Yeah, and that's what I look at. I have so many pastors, so many young men and women who DM me or text me or send me a note saying, I never felt I was free to express my faith. And I want to be a follower of Jesus, and I want to be a pastor, but I'm also a fashion designer. I want to be a pastor. I'm also a filmmaker. I want to be a pastor. I'm also an entrepreneur, business person. And I never thought it was possible until you did that.
Yeah.
And in fact, I know I'm an anomaly, but I hope that before I die, I'm a norm.
Yeah.
I just hope that people are used to pastors being incredibly creative and entrepreneurial and even eccentric and I hope the stereotype of what it means to be pastor, what's required to be pastor, is just absolutely destroyed. And look at a person and see if they're doing good in the world. And here's the crazy thing is like, you make clothes, like, we have, McManus Gallery. And if you make a jacket and someone doesn't like it, all they have to do is like return it, but then they'll go, oh, well, I hate that jacket or whatever. But you didn't really like have a dramatic effect on their life. Hopefully, like I've ordered things, the shoes didn't fit, I sent them back, but I don't hate Nike for the rest of my life. No. I'm not like furious at Converse going, you let me down. But in church life, you're trying to help people. You open up your doors to broken, hurting people who are struggling, imperfect, because we all are. And then if it doesn't get better for them, they hold you responsible for the brokenness in their life. And this is the thing.
And then they hate everything you touch forever.
Yeah,
forever.
Yeah, forever. And one of the things, people said to me, things like, well, I came to Mosaic and I never found community. And I said, well, let me ask you, like, where in your life have you found community? And the answer is usually nowhere. And I say, is it possible that Mosaic isn't the problem? That you actually haven't developed the emotional and relational infrastructure to know how to have friendships? And one of the things people don't realize is that church is one of the few places that's willing to risk its reputation on people who will destroy it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Honestly, it's an incredible act of sacrifice.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. And it's really funny because we talk about it a lot. I have an innate fear of being canceled, Me Too, destroyed, slandered on the internet because I hate it. I'm a pretty private person and I've made mistakes for sure. I made mistakes that a pastor's kid shouldn't make. Yeah. But lots of pastors' kids make. And I'm not contextualizing. I'm just saying. So this podcast has been something that's really helped me be able to talk about things that I've struggled with in a more open platform because I would never really air that out speaking in Venice. But talking about mental health and my struggles with it, talking about suicide and my struggles with it, talking about addiction, not an addiction, but like struggles with alcohol and things like that. Like we've been able to unwrap things that I had to struggle through. I was different than Mariah. I was different than you even. And so, but when you look at it from like a public platform, I was having coffee with someone today who's like really big in that whole world, in acting and in LGBTQ world and like the whole thing. And like we love both, but it's a complex dynamic, especially in LA, because there's so much going on politically with it and environmentally. And then they see us as kind of like the frontier of conservatism, which we really aren't. If anything, we're so much more progressive than I think so much of the church. And it's kind of an honor, but a really delicate one at times, So what you said is like it's the greatest sacrifice to really love on people who are so quick to destroy it. It's so true. Like and like the great thing is that I do think we have thousands of people who understand that Mosaic is in like one of the most volatile corners of the world. Yeah, the craziest corners. Like all the sane people live in South Pass. And it's like, but you have such crazy kind of young people who come to the city and like trying to figure out who they are. And they wrap God in it. And I know that there were times where I was really lonely. And I would tell you, I'd be like, my friends don't go to this church. Like my friends go to other churches or they just don't go to church, Yeah. And I liked them better. But God really did a miracle in my life by bringing such incredible people around me. And so it was like, I stayed committed to coming. I was a mess. I think Mosaic stayed more committed to me than I stayed committed to Mosaic. And like, that problem was solved. But a huge part of the reason I think it got solved of the loneliness thing was I became a better friend. I stopped ghosting people. And I had like left New York and I felt like all my friends in New York had kind of like abandoned me. from like the church I was there, and they didn't. It's just when you move, you're not the priority anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know if I had gone back, it's just funny how time and things change. But you feel lonely, and so you project that everyone else in the world is trying to make you lonely.
Yeah.
So the things that you're a part of are the reason why you're lonely.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you? We ask the right questions, but I think oftentimes we project the wrong blame at the wrong things.
I mean, I look at me and your mom. I'm the son of an alcoholic, and your mom's a daughter of an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And for both of us, imperfect churches helped us discover a life-changing relationship with Jesus.
Right.
And, and in that process, it would have been easy for us to look at everything those churches did wrong. Mm-hmm. But what they did right is they loved us in their imperfection. Mm-hmm. And a part of the reason I'm so committed still to the church is that I actually think the church offers the world something unique that nothing else does.
Yeah.
And that's community. Mm. And I have so many friends who don't know Jesus, and they're just so incredibly lonely. They don't have any friends.
Yeah.
And any connections. And the human connection is lost to them. And I just so often I just say, look, it doesn't matter that you don't believe in God. Just come. You need people in your life. I met someone last week, and she's from San Diego. And outside of San Diego, I said, how long you lived in LA? She said, 2 years. I said, how do you like it? She goes, I hate it. And I said, why? She goes, people aren't friendly. I don't know anybody. I've been here 2 years. I live with my boyfriend. I came here for work, but I don't know. I'm alone.
Yeah.
And I said, how old are you? She said, 22. And I said, I got a bunch of 20-year-olds that would love to be your friend.
You got to send me your contact. I got to give it to Amy and Robbie.
And I gave
you
it to
Amy and Robbie? Okay.
Yeah. And,
cool.
And I think the city is full of people like that, but not just our city. The world is full of people who just feel so disconnected. And I don't think people realize as much as they hate on the church and hate on Christianity and hate on, pastors and churches. Church is one of the few places people can actually step out of their loneliness and isolation, and connect to other people, make friendships, and have people who can actually journey with them all their life. I think that's pretty amazing.
It's so amazing. And I think community is tough in any hemisphere or environment. Like it's just something you have to put a lot into, have to have a lot of like openness and grace and forgiveness for. And I think some people who have come before me have put it so much better than I can. Is like church is a family you choose. Mm-hmm. But once you make a family, you don't walk away from family. You just have to either like decide to help it get better, or you know what I mean, or just leave. Yeah. And I don't walk away from my family. There's sometimes I take breaks, but I think once you kind of choose, and obviously there's so much stuff that goes on with it. But back to the original thing. We were talking about being a pastor and kind of breaking out of the shell.
I have a friend named Keith, and he says you have a family of birth and you have a family of choice. Yeah. And the church becomes your family of choice if you allow it to be. Yeah. But going back to what you asked me earlier about being a futurist, it brings me to a question we were talking about earlier about the future of education. Do you want to talk about that?
I do. I want to talk about it. We're 40 minutes in. Do you want to? That's another episode.
All right, then we'll.
You want to do 20 minutes on it?
No, we'll save it for another episode. But I want to talk about the future of education. And we've had 18 months where schools have been basically shut down across the country. Yeah. And it's a great moment for us to talk about what should education look like in the future. But we're going to save that for the next podcast. This is a little teaser for it.
Thank you so much for every single person who supports Battle Ready Podcast and now supports the Genius Of. So Battle Ready is still going to be a thing. We're still going to do this. But the Genius Of, unfortunately, I haven't made it to the Genius Of. I'm not in the Genius category. So this is a podcast I'm going to help produce. But it's me, my dad, and my dad's co-host or whoever else guests he brings on. Yeah. So I'm really excited to be part of this project. So thank you for every person who subscribes, who listens, who rates and reviews these podcasts on iTunes, and every person who supports us on Anchor. We have 142 people who contribute each month. And so if you are interested in that, you can go to the link in bio. And we are dropping some new merch before Father's Day. I can't promise you'll get it for Father's Day, but you're gonna get something. So we're going to drop that. So check this out on the link in the bio. New merch, Battle Ready. Fight Club. I don't know. Battle Ready Fight Club. That's what I think it's going to be called.
All right.
All right. Love you, Dad.
I love you too.
All right. Bye.